This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and a very warm welcome to the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the ever so fabulous Tazmin Suleman, with episodes going out every single Thursday. Now, first things first, just want to wish all of our listeners a happy new year. How the hell are we in 2025? What happened to 2024? Time just seems to go. And I also want to welcome you to our first ever episode of a brand new season, which is quite exciting. Now, I'm very aware that I've come at this with a lot of high energy, trying to be positive, but this week's episode, so the first episode for a brand new season, we're talking about January blues. Yeah. So we discuss why we have these feelings, how they show up for us in our personal life, but also at work. And we also give strategies. So me and Tazmin talk about ways that we overcome these feelings around January, what we've seen other people do, what we've read up upon. It's a really good episode, especially if you are feeling a little down, you've got those anxious feelings, you've got those feelings of dread going back to work. This is a great conversation because me and Tazmin get to the bottom of it. We talk about it, we highlight this, but you also go away with easy to implement strategies to better overcome these feelings. Now, before I play you this fabulous episode, just a reminder of how you can support the podcast. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. So if you want to give us a one-off donation, head on over to Buy Me a Coffee and you can do so there. There is a link in the show notes, and a big thank you to everyone who has already done that. And another way is by signing up to our newsletter. If you've not already, what are you doing? So yeah, in the show notes, you can sign up to the newsletter, and basically you receive information related to the podcast about new episodes, other things that we're doing, other insights, taking steps further. Go and sign up to our newsletter. Right, shall we crack on with this week's episode? Hello, Tazmin.
Hello, Sarah.
So it blows my mind a little bit because we are recording this beginning of December, but when this episode goes out, Christmas, New Year, that whole festive, happy holidays season, it's been and gone.
Oh, don't wish it away, Sarah, please.
I'm not wishing it away, but it's just, it's quite weird to think that when this goes out, when people listen to it, they'd have had all their Christmas, happy, festive, New Year, however they celebrate. If they don't celebrate, whatever the next month looks like, it had already happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But you know what? We need to do this. Otherwise, what are we going to be doing? Recording on the 1st of January for the episode. We don't want to be doing that. It's better for us and for everyone out there if we do it now.
Definitely. Can you believe we're back for another season? So we're in season 12. 12 seasons. Just take a moment to think about that, Tazmin.
I know. 12 seasons old. Now I think if people ask me, how old are you? I'll say I'm 12 seasons old.
And that does mean that we're coming into our third year.
It'll be our 3rd-year anniversary. And Sarah, we might have a slight problem because
Oh,
traditionally you give like gifts. So year 1 is paper, I believe. I don't know what year 2 is, but year 3 is leather.
oh gosh.
Not very vegan friendly, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, yeah, we can overcome that. Fake leather,
We can.
recycled
Yeah,
leather.
fake
I
leather.
don't know.
Brilliant. 3 years. Very, very pleased with that.
And I'm so glad that we're back with another season. We've got some cracking topics. We've got cracking guests, episodes lined up. We've got a quite exciting year as well. Lots of different things going on with the podcast. Obviously, we'll be back with the live podcast later on in the year. Other things that we're going to be developing and doing more of. So, do you know what? I'm pretty excited.
It's going to be a great year.
I realised that we started the podcast with high energy, positive vibes.
Yeah.
But the title of this week's episode is Beating Those Blue Monday January Feelings. So, how we can deal with those January blues. So, later on in the month, on the 21st of January, it's called Blue Monday. And that is because it is considered, as the most depressing day of the year. And there's lots of different factors to this, isn't it? It's gloomy weather, it gets dark, pitch black really early on. Maybe you're socialized out, maybe you're worried about finances after Christmas. Maybe you're putting too much pressure on yourself with New Year's resolutions. I mean, there's lots of different factors. You've had a break from work in your career, and maybe you've got anxious feelings, or maybe there's a bit of dread going back to that. So there's lots of different reasons why people get these January blues, and it's going to be different for different people. So my first question to you, Tazmin, is do you usually suffer with these January blues?
I tend not to, but as you were saying, all the things that you were saying, one thing that did pop into my mind, if anyone who's listening is feeling all of these feelings and it's more than just a day and it's a prolonged period, then please, please, please seek help. Go to your GP, and just make sure that it's nothing. You get the help that you need to get. This is, but going back to your topic about general January blues, no, I don't think I do. And I think that might be because we celebrate Christmas in terms of it's a public holiday, family get together, but there hasn't been that focus on, for example, lots of present organizing, which can be hugely expensive. I've already seen people with bags and bags coming out of Smith's Toys, and that can take a toll. So because we don't do that, that might be helpful. And I've always been a bit of a planner, and we'll be talking about this later, so I can see the rest of the year. But no, tend not to.
Well, that's a wonderful place to be in. And yeah, I think we will. So, part two after the break, will be discussing like strategies and tips that you can implement if you do suffer with January blues. But I think it does show up for a lot of people. And I mean, I have mixed feelings because it's my birthday in January. And I always joke that it always falls at a really awkward time of year because my birthday is the 8th of January. So it's always the weekend after New Year's, and people have had enough. they want to hermit, they don't want to socialize. And I get it. And I'm just like, come on, guys, just one more week. We can celebrate my birthday. But yeah, I mean, so because it is my birthday, I try to have like more of a positive mindset. But there is different factors that are going around in January, which I've spoken about, that I've definitely felt. And I think depending on what's going on in your life, whether that's professional or personal, I think January blues are going to have different impacts depending on that. Like me and Tash have had a pretty tough 2024, and I won't get into that now, but I'm quite looking forward to 2025 because we want to try and, life throws some curveballs, but we're looking at 2025 with positivity, thinking, okay, let's try and make 2025 a good one. So yeah, I think I'm on the fence on this one. I'm not a hard no, I'm not a hard yes, but I definitely, there are feelings that I get. And I think what is good to talk about is how it shows up for people at work or in their
Yeah.
career. So some of the things that I'm thinking about is maybe you're dreading going back to work. Maybe you're really like, when you think about, I don't know, sitting down at your desk or doing your first project or whatever it is you're doing, that fills you with a bit of dread. It fills you with a bit of anxiety. It could also show up in not feeling motivated. Yeah. So you don't feel the oomph, you don't feel that drive, you don't feel motivated to do stuff. And maybe that's like, I don't know, in your team or at your work, there's a project or there's new opportunities or there's things that you can put yourself forward to and you're just not feeling motivated. You find it hard to concentrate. There's a lot of procrastination going on. You end up staring out the window for long periods of time. Those are sort of the ways that it's shown up for me at times. And definitely when I've been speaking to other people. Can you think of anything else that I've missed?
I think, when you asked me, do I generally tend to get down? And I said no. But thinking back when I've been in roles that I've been unhappy in, and you have that period of time off, and generally, if you're lucky, you can add a few days off and it becomes quite a long time off. And there's, you go outside and there's twinkly lights and there's people singing carols and there's a lot of festivity, and it's in stark contrastation. Can't think of the word. Is that the right
I
word?
love that
Contrast.
word. Sounds a little bit like crustacean.
Maybe, but
Crustacean.
it's
Anyway, I don't think that's a word. What's the C word?
anyway. It's very different to what work feels and looks like. And then you have that period off and you've spent time with friends and family, and then to go back, yes, I have experienced that dread. And when you go back and suddenly there is a pile of work to do, because that's what happens. You tend to have that collective, that email list waiting for you to look
Oh gosh,
at. It's
yeah.
tough. It is tough. And nobody else is feeling particularly motivated.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about the mountains of emails, but you're right. Just, there is this definite overwhelm because maybe as well, there's been situations where um, there's work that you've put off doing in December because you're like, oh, this is my time to like kick back a bit, like have a bit of chill time, don't go so hard. So I imagine as well there's lots of like projects or lots of tasks, or especially those tasks that you're not really looking forward to. You maybe think, oh well, we're we're coming to the end of the year, the business is closing down, or there's going to be time off, or people are focusing on different things. I'll just push that to next year.
Yeah. And I think also when you've had that time off, you've had time to think about, you know, um, if you are in a role that you think isn't quite for you, you've had time to think about it, you may have had conversations with people because you've had that downtime, whether it's you and your siblings, you and your partner, you and whoever. I think that it's a time where a lot of realities really hit.
Definitely, definitely. And with everything else going on, you can see how that's going to impact someone, especially by external factors as well. Because there is, what does SAD, seasonal affective disorder?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where like obviously, and obviously this, we can't give medical advice and we're not giving medical advice. This is just as a caveat. But I think there is always an element of your surroundings and what's around you affecting you. Like I would say, generally speaking, people are happier in the summer and spring months because warmer weather, better weather, it's lighter, it's brighter, and you can kind of see when it gets to winter how those external factors, because it is a little bit like when you finish work at like 4:30 5 o'clock and it's pitch black outside. So I can definitely see how these things would affect, but yeah, it's important to address it, acknowledge those feelings, so then you can do something about it, which leads me nicely on to us taking a short break and introducing what we'll be talking about in part two. So, Tazmin, I bet you, I mean, we've already said what we're talking about in part two, but just, humour me. Ask me the question.
What we're talking about in part two, Sarah.
That was. So obviously we've addressed those feelings of anxiety, those January blues. So we're going to be talking about practical, actual strategies that you can implement, you can start doing to help you combat those January blues. Does that sound good?
Sounds brilliant.
Sarah here, just quickly popping on to remind you of how you can support the podcast. You can give me and Tazmin a one-off donation. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. There is a link in the show notes and we'd be very much appreciative of that. You can also subscribe to the podcast. So in the show notes again, you'll see a link where you can subscribe on your preferred podcast playing app, whether that is Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, whatever you prefer. And whilst you're there, why not give us a cheeky 5-star review? Yeah, SEOs, you know how algorithms work. So all the lovely reviews that we can get will help the podcast. Introducing Clear Narrative Media, a purpose-led media marketing agency that transforms how founders, creatives, and organizations share their stories online. Dedicated to assisting you with all your marketing, content, and strategy needs. Their services include photography, consultancy, and social media management. Clear Narrative Media is here to transport your visions to life. They are on a mission to help you to create awareness, build visibility, and enhance your business and professional growth overall. For more information, head over to their website at cnmedia.com or follow the link in the show notes. Tazmin, we're back for part two.
I've just thought of a funny story to share, but I'll let you
All
start.
is.
No, I'll let you start, and then when it's the opportune moment, I shall tell it.
Oh, do you know what? You've enticed our listeners there. That's a good hook. They're going to have to stick around. You're already giggling.
It's amazing. I'd forgotten about it until you started talking about all of this. Thought, oh, yeah, I did that.
Well, Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Right. So we're going to talk about things that we can do to combat those January blues. Tazmin, I have a list of things that I've tried, I've read upon, or I've heard other people do. If at any time join me, have your opinions, say what you think as well. But do you want me to start? Do you want me to start with my strategies?
Go for it. I'd love to.
So, first things first, don't put off working to those goals that you want to achieve. Now, you might be thinking, I have all year. I have all year to do that massive goal that I want to do. If you try and change that mindset, because the sooner that you are proactive in working towards your goals, the better that mindset, the more happy you're going to be. And actually, January is a great time to reflect on last year. So, what was good about last year? What wasn't good about last year? With the stuff that wasn't good last year, what is in your control that you can change? Because obviously, I've already said, life will throw you curveballs. You can't control all the bad stuff that's going to happen, but there may be other stuff that you can, or there's learnings from it at least. What do you want to do more of? So those things that you really enjoyed, or those things that were really good, like how can you do that more? Yeah. So take January as the time to reflect, gather your thoughts, start thinking about a plan, but don't put off, because the more that you put off, because we've all done it, haven't we? Like, and I'm bad for this. If I think I've got oodles of time to do something, you put it off to the last minute and then it's a scramble, you're stressed. So, yeah, don't do that. Get ahead of yourself.
We have an episode about reflecting on your year and setting the goals. So we can put that in the show notes.
Do you know what, Tazmin? You're not just a pretty face, are you? My next tip is to create a fun and inspiring place of work. Make it a joy to just sit at your desk. So, how can you do that? For example, I flip and love a plant. Yeah. Can you put a plant on your desk? And also, plants give off more oxygen. So it will help to nourish and encourage that brain as well. What other things can you put in your work environment? Can you treat yourself to a new mug? Is there a fancy pen pot that you want? Is there little fidget spinners or like things like that that will help you? Treat yourself to a new notebook. Pictures. Get pictures in front of you. Have a cool poster that's inspiring, or a roadmap or plan. Just make where you work inspiring and fun, and somewhere that you actually want to spend time in.
As you're saying all of this, you'd be amazed at how many of my one-to-one clients in January say, can I just work on decluttering in this 1 month? And it is about getting rid of the things that no longer serve us, refreshing it with things that make our energy higher. So, just change your desk setup, even if it is a desk at home, especially actually if it is a desk at home. Do that, because it will change the way you feel when you sit down to work. Get new stationery, put a quote up, anything that's going to lift your spirits will help you. And in fact, last weekend, my husband and I were redesigning the office, and that's going to be the plan for this next couple of weekends. So when we hit January, the office will be done.
And also have a look into alternative like desks and like workplaces. Like, you don't always have to be sitting at a desk. You can get those rising desks, can't you, if you want to stand? Or like, can you change your room around? Like, can you be closer to the window? in your room? If you don't have a window in your room, how can you encourage light and things like that? So just have a think of how you can make the most of your space. Focus on well-being. So here I'm talking about nutrition. Now, I know it's hard when we're feeling a bit down. We want to go for those foods that are very sugary, very carby, those things that we think that are going to comfort us. Well, I'm not saying don't do that. Like, you do you, but try and give yourself some nutrition. Remember that vegetables, fruit, nuts, seeds, berries, all of that good stuff, the more nutritious and the better stuff that you put in your body, the better off you're going to be. Exercise. And I'm not talking about, I don't know, doing a 5K run. Like, exercise could be walking, yeah? Could be doing some stretching, could be doing some yoga. Whatever, don't set your goal too high. Like, if you've not done any exercise and you all of a sudden want to do exercise, if you set yourself too big a challenge, it's going to be overwhelming. You're not going to do it. So think of exercise that is going to be easier for you to do. Think about habit stacking. I think you said on a previous podcast, Tazmin, that when you make a tea, you do some squats or something. Is that you?
It is me. And, going on what you were saying about healthy eating, don't, make one change a week. Just say, from January, I'm going to make one change a week. So in our household right now, although my husband's not incredibly pleased about it, but I keep on banging on about 30 points a week. So maybe in week 1, you introduce sprinkling some seeds on your granola or whatever it is. Or in week 2, do something else. Week 3. And that way you're not going so far out of your comfort zone that it is uncomfortable. It's one thing, but then it'll stack. Then week 2, you'll have 2 things. Week 3, you have 3 things. And even with, like you said, the exercise, don't go from 0 to 5K all at once. Do a bit and always recognize the thing that you're doing. Always bank that success, because that'll again will help you feel better. You talking about physical nutrition, also pay attention to your emotional diet. So what are you reading?
Yes.
What are you watching? And what are you listening to? These 3 things
Yes.
are critical for helping you feel better.
And it does lead me on to another point that I had about taking time for yourself and doing stuff that, like you say, what are you reading? What are you learning? Are you taking time out for yourself? Are you having a bit of me time? What do you enjoy doing? What can you do that's going to enable you to switch your brain off for a bit? Breathing exercising, going for walks in the fresh air, all of that lovely stuff. Next up is, if you're really, really dreading work, is it right for you? Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone who's got that bit of dread or bit of anxiety should be like, you know what, I need a new job. That's not what I mean here. But if these feelings have cropped up throughout the year, or if there is this like an intense feeling of dread, or it feels a little bit more, or like even after you've got back into the swing and you've got back into your routine of work and those feelings are still there and you're still feeling uninspired, you're still feeling not motivated, you're hard to concentrate, you're getting easily distracted, maybe you need a bit of a change up. Maybe you need to think about something for you. Another thing that you could do is plan in-person or virtual coffee with people that you feel safe around. Yeah. So find safe people that you can have honest, open, and transparent conversations with. Obviously, it's going to be hard to do it in person. We're getting busier and busier as society. Maybe we need to talk about that on a podcast episode, because busy doesn't always mean success, does it? But plan in time for you to connect with someone. So, but be mindful who the person that you're picking is. You don't want any toxicness. You don't want any bad vibes. You need to pick the right person that is going to give you what you want. And also maybe someone who can be a bit honest with you as well. Yeah. Or someone that can give you an alternative way of looking at it and it's not going to rub you up the wrong way. You can, other things that I would suggest doing is learn something new. Finally do that hobby that you've always wanted to do, but you've always put off. Just go for it. Give it a go. And then my last two things, and then I'll get Tazmin's input because I see that she's been ferociously writing down as we've gone through. But other things that you can do is be kind to yourself. So acknowledge that it's okay to be having these feelings. Don't put yourself down. It's very common. You're not the only person. Yeah. Be kind to yourself and give yourself time to, sit with the feelings, think about how you're feeling. And a great thing that I'm trying to do more of is each day think of 3 things that you can be grateful for. Yeah, because that will help you change that mindset. And it doesn't always have to be related to work. Obviously, maybe it can be related to work. Maybe, I don't know, you've finally done this massive bit of keyword research that's been on your to-do list for a while and you've got that done, or you've had that conversation with a client or someone at work that you've been putting off. Or it could be as simple as, do you know what? The sun was out today. Do you know what? I went for a walk. Do you know what? I'm very grateful for this person that I get to work with. Yeah. So change that mindset. What can you be grateful for? And that brings me to the end of my list. Tazmin, I am on the edge of my seat. I want to know your input.
So I may reflect in December and start doing in January person. So we are 3rd of December. I've already done my reflections. I've got my 2025 laminated A1 wall chart on the wall, and it's slowly being filled with things that I'll be doing next year. And for me, that means that I've sort of bypassed some of the blues and have gone straight into excitement mode. And that's something that everyone can do. You don't have to have lots on it to start with, but the more you put in, it'll snowball. So I'm planning to go to India with my cousin in mid-Feb. So that's on it. Then I've got Women in Tech. That's on it. Then I'm going to be doing some goal setting stuff throughout the seasons. That's on it. Got my fasting month. That's on it. And you can start building it up so you can see what your year looks like. Otherwise, it's very easy just to concentrate on the gloom of January. So that's number one. Go with the flow. If you know that it's going to be cold wherever you're living, obviously some of our listeners are living in more lovelier climates than Milton Keynes and Worcester. But okay, I'm going to be, maybe this is a bit oversharing, but like I like being snuggly, being in my comfy pajamas. So last week, as if I was going to Dior, I went round the shops and I bought a set of pajamas, new pajamas, not just one set, a collection, like my ensemble. And I brought them home as if I was carrying those big Dior bags. Like, I'm set. I've got beautiful, comfy pajamas for the whole of January. Go with the flow. If you don't want to see people, just block those weekends out in January. That you know what, you're going to get your blanket and get into your new comfy pajamas and sit down and just chill, if that's what you want to do. If you want to have people around for more informal occasions than Christmas and New Year was, do that. Do what feels right for you. Give yourself those small treats. And for me, definitely, it's always the full year plan. And what do I want to do? And these are conversations that then I will have with my children. I would like to see my grandson X number of years. Can we block those dates in? Then they can change, but at least block them in so we know where we are. With my husband, what is it that we want to do? With my daughter, what is it that we want to do? And then you can start feeling excited, because if you can think higher than how you're feeling, it's going to be easier to get out of that mode.
And I just want to relate this to the work setting as well. So you just said about having conversations with people and setting your intentions or setting what you want to do. You should be doing that at work as well. So having conversations with your team, having conversations with your boss and being like, okay, 2025, I want to do more of this. Maybe you want to take on more responsibilities. Maybe you want to get maybe you're more on the content side in SEO and you want to get more into the technical and that side of things. Maybe you want to do more speaking gigs.
Yes.
Maybe you want to, maybe your agency side and you want to be more involved in pitching and presenting a pitch and all of that. So you get really intentional, and remember that just because your job and what you're doing now looks a certain way doesn't mean that that has to stay. And you've also got to remember as well that people aren't mind readers. So until you have that conversation with your team, until you have that conversation with your boss, how are they going to know what you want to do more of? If you're just cracking on doing the stuff and not saying anything, then they're going to think that you're happy. And also another way to think about it is if you're having these conversations, it shows to your employer, it shows to your work, your boss, it shows to the higher up people that actually you're driven and you want to do more and you're putting yourself forward, because you've got to be proactive. You've got to be proactive. You've got to do stuff for yourself.
100%, because I've said it before, I'll say it again. Take ownership of your career. Nobody is going to look after your career as much as you have the ability to look after it. In the next episode, Sarah, that we're going to be recording soon, I'll be talking about how to set those career goals and set yourself up for success. And looking at, what does that mean? Does that mean I want to stay in the same organization but to do something slightly differently? Do I want to go to a different organization? Do I want to go to a different department? Do I want to do more freelance, less freelance? Whatever that looks like, we'll go through all of that. But this, when you are reflecting on the year, reflect on, what projects did I do that I enjoyed? What didn't I enjoy? What skills do I want to build? And all of that will take your focus, instead of being, I'm in January and it is cold and gloomy, to, this is what I want to be doing in 2025.
Fabulous. Yes, and you got to plan. You got to know where you're heading towards, because otherwise you're just aimlessly just going through it, aren't you? So, Tazmin, that does bring me to the end of our first episode back in the new year. I'm guessing the funny story was the pajamas.
No.
You didn't. I mean, we enticed our listeners, and you didn't even tell the funny story.
I didn't think
We're
that
gonna
was
hear
funny.
it.
Having a pajama collection is a very serious topic. It's McDowell.
Just
Even said Dior to make it sound a
very
bit
serious.
upmarket. It wasn't Dior pajamas.
You told it in a very comical way, Tazmin.
Oh, have we got time for my story? We can do it another day.
No, squeeze it in. We've got it. You can't dangle a carrot for me and our listeners and then not deliver.
Oh, okay. So it was after the divorce, when the kids and I were back on track, and we said, this year we're going to get a real tree. So me and my daughter, we didn't realize that when it's netted, it's so much smaller. Anyway, this tree appeared, and it was like belonged in a mansion, and we did not live in a mansion. Anyway, so we got this tree, we've decorated it, everything's happy. We had Christmas dinner together, and then the next day they went to their dad's. And then I get a call the day after saying, oh, Daddy's proposed to someone, and we're going to meet her tomorrow. They were a bit in shock. Um, anyway, Christmas was not as jovial as we thought it was going to be. And I said, when they came back, I said, right, we're not taking the tree down. We're just pretending the last few days didn't happen. So although it was unlucky for some, we kept our tree up for like weeks. And we just sort of like continued the Christmas spirit until about halfway through January. The tree was dead. It looked a bit like, what's the Mrs. Havisham? What is that program?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So my
Yeah.
tree was looking a bit like Mrs. Havisham's tree. It was like dead with these baubles. And then the kids said, I think we need to take that down. So yes, I extended Christmas until halfway through January because I decided that's what I wanted to do.
There you go. There you go. You got to do what you got to do. And I'm just thinking back to that Miss Havisham, and that's a really sad story,
Yeah,
isn't
very
it?
sad.
Because doesn't Miss Havisham get like jilted?
Yes.
Like she's meant to get married, and her husband to be doesn't turn up, and so she just keeps everything how it was on the day, and it gets a bit
Yeah.
mouldy. It's really painting a picture of what your Christmas tree looked like.
I mean, I wasn't distressed about the remarriage. Let's just get that straight. But I was just distressed that we'd lost Christmas through all of this malarkey that was going on. So we just carried on.
Do you know what? There you go. Well, I'm glad you shared that story, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same as well. And that was two great stories: your pajama story and your Christmas tree story.
There you go. Bonus for the first
You are the gift
episode.
that keeps on giving. Right, we need to sign off because we've gone over our usual time, but it's been good. And hopefully people coming towards the end of this episode, they're ready to take January, deal with those feelings of anxiety, of those blues, and really, taking the bull by its horns, I think is the saying, isn't it? And hopefully this episode has helped. Now, just want to remind people of how you can support the podcast. Me and Tazmin are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means that you can give us a one-off donation. The link in the show notes to do that. Thank you to everyone who has already given us a one-off donation. We are very appreciative of that. And what's another way, Tazmin? Pick one at
Sign
random.
up to the newsletter because I'll be putting a lot of information on setting goals and following them through in 2025.
There you go. So one that you don't want to miss that, folks. So yeah, in the show notes, there will be a link to sign up to our general newsletter. So you can unsubscribe at any time, but yeah, you just get updates, tidbits from Tazmin. Tazmin looks after it for us.
Subscribe. They won't want to unsubscribe. Wash your mouth out, Sarah McDowell. Subscribe and stay connected to us.
Yes, I mean, in this GDPR world, you have to cover yourself, Tazmin. I'm just saying, you can unsubscribe. You don't have to stick with us forever, but I'm sure that they would want to. Why would anyone want to unsubscribe from receiving your emails, Tazmin? I don't know.
Either.
I feel like you've actually taken a bit of offence to this.
Oh dear.
Right, shall we say goodbye, take care of yourself, and until next time.
Goodbye, everyone, and hopefully this episode has cheered you up if you are feeling a bit blue.
Looking to create awareness, build visibility, and enhance growth for your business, organization, or yourself? Introducing Clear Narrative Media, a purpose-led media and marketing agency that transforms how founders, creatives, and organizations share their stories online. Dedicated to assisting you with all your marketing, content, and strategy needs. You can find them on all social media platforms and online at cnmedia.com. or follow the link in the show notes.